Soft inting is a big topic right now because it was Riot poo-poo lasers. Poo-poo lasers? Pew-poo lasers? I don't know. It's P-P-U-P-U.
Hello and welcome to The Dive, driven by IKEA, Season 8, Episode 21. We are a bit back from break, right? We're still on break, but we're kind of back.
The LCS is on break, but we are not.
Yeah, exactly. The Dive never breaks. The Dive never sleeps.
We never left.
Well, I left. I went home.
Yeah.
You've just been sleeping here?
I've been here.
I mean, the setup's pretty good. You got about 32 computers. You know, you can switch every time you feel like it. Honestly, though, like today's been pretty fun. It's been packed with a lot of content.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna have this Swarm product lead later in the episode.
Yep.
Sope May will be on, so talk some Swarm stuff, and we did some show matches. So a lot
Meteos
of
got to play test it. I did an episode of pros. We got the dive. We got all kinds of content coming out.
lots of fun stuff happening, though we also did get 4th of July week off for the first time since I started LCS. It's been like 11 years. I've never gone.
Didn't we have it off like last 2 years?
No. Well, okay. We had a
First
day.
time since last year. Let's go.
Hold your horses, buddy. I've never had time to fly home to see family for a proper 4th of July. But this
There
year
you
I
go.
It was
did.
a fake 4th of July.
Well,
It
it's
was
super
not
fraudulent.
patriotic enough.
It was certainly not.
How
I did get to
American was your 4th of July?
I didn't get to have barbecues at the lake with my drunk uncles, and this year I did.
Yeah? Is that what you guys did? You barbecued? And
It was actually
sounds fun.
It was crazy because it's in NorCal, and so there's a bunch of fires. It's crazy times for fires in California right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
109 degrees.
Oh, geez.
And so everybody's we're just floating in the lake most of the time, and everyone's just having a good time. But there were a couple of emergencies that popped up pretty early on.
That's spooky. Are you a griller yourself? Or
Uh,
is someone else
I'm a
manning the
griller.
grill?
I'm a griller. I'm not a great griller.
But you're grilling. You're
I'm
in there.
there,
You're
yeah.
participating.
I'm in there. For
Hamburgers or hot dogs?
I like both. We had specialty hot dogs though. There were a bunch
Oh.
of like herbs and cheese in them.
We've realized that Kobe's
cheese
pretty
dogs.
bougie. We were talking about favorite pizza toppings during the show match, and he's like Kalamata olives, like specifically not just olives, and Flowers hadn't heard of them. So
Yeah,
I don't know what those are.
If you say regular olives, then people are gonna think the can of this blandest tasting olives that.
you wanted
have-
goat's cheese and Kalamata. So
I don't want to be
he's
associated
got
with
the
those.
fancy hot dogs. This is some bougie
Okay,
4th of July.
okay.
You gotta treat yourself, man.
Yeah.
How was
Yeah,
your break,
respect.
Meteos? What about you?
What did I do?
Play some World of Warcraft, maybe?
Played some.
Uh-huh.
Actually, it's like the end of season grind. Got to the Mythic Plus title range, which doesn't mean much to really anyone.
go.
Let's
But
go.
it was kind of like a goal for me, so
That's
that was
cool.
fun.
I did know that, and so I wanted you to be able to tell everybody.
Oh,
and share that.
thank you, thank
Nice.
you.
Really, we're really proud.
I have been playing a lot of Shadow of the Erdtree. I played Stellar Blade. I beat that, which was actually really fun. And then I played Shadow of the Erdtree, which was also really fun. So I've just been kind of grinding some games on the break, honestly, games that I had been wanting to play. Elden Ring is a super, super fun game. I think Shadow of the Erdtree was really good, but I don't think it was as good as Elden Ring. And honestly, when I was playing through it, I don't know if either of you guys have played it yet, I kind of felt like later in the game, I'm like, oh, you guys ran out of production time. Like there was like, because some of the later zones are very empty. And when you beat the game, there's like not even really like a cinematic to signify it or anything. So I was kind of like, oh, it's over.
I haven't played it, but I saw Mark's tweet, and Mark's tweet was like 10 out of 10 for the first 60% of the game, and then his rating dropped
Yeah.
dramatically.
Really? Yeah. I mean, I actually started Elden Ring recently.
Okay, the base game.
Yeah, the base game. I've actually never played any Souls-like games.
Oh, you're in for a treat.
Yeah, and I fell into like the noob trap of just like fighting the Sentinel, like whatever his name is, like the tree guy.
The horse?
Yeah, the horse. And I was on him for like 3 hours or something crazy.
Yeah, you got to commit to it. See, people.
I
say-
did.
People tell you you're supposed to go level up. No, if you find a boss, you just have to sit there and just die. Until
Yeah,
you
yeah,
kill it. You just have to do it.
It was fun, but yeah, I don't know. I think like part of the way through, I asked Sneaky about it, and he said it was a noob trap. I'm not supposed to fight him, but I was like, I'm so committed. I just have to keep going.
I killed that thing at level 1. Sometimes it's just fun, but like that's kind of the cool and the frustrating part about the game is that there's almost no direction given, right? So it's like you just can do whatever you want.
Dude, I can't do that when games like. I know it's gonna make me like the smoothest brain person ever, but people complain about what is like the term they use, like yellow tape, where it's like they tell you where to go, and I'm like, please tell me where to go. Like, give me a line telling me exactly what to do, and I'll follow it to the T. Like
you should just find a guide then.
Yeah,
because you can still like enjoy the bosses, but maybe just like follow the path.
Yeah, I think that's what I would do if I was gonna get more into it.
Yeah.
Which I think I will at some point. The reason I stopped playing was because like the controller I used got attacked by my dog, and so like the thumbstick kind of like lost the rubber on it, and it was like stabbing me in the finger. So playing it too much was a challenge.
Those games are so fun though. I think that one of the things I always find weird about when people talk about Elden Ring and those kind of games is that some people say that like there's no difficulty settings on it, like there's no like accessibility in it, and I always feel like that's so fake because there's actually such a wide level of difficulties that you can play the game on. It's just like not explicitly setting on story mode or easy or hard or whatever. You can literally summon in your friends and have them kill every boss for you and not even do anything. You just stand in the corner. That's like story mode right there. You can do absolute hard mode where people are like doing the absolute crazy stuff where they're doing level 1 wretched with that starts with no stats. They never level up. They never get anything the whole game. They beat the whole game. Like that's like crazy hard mode. And then there's all the kinds of different levels in between, right? Because if something is difficult, you can go and like power level your character and get over leveled to it, or find a really OP build, or go look up a cheese guide or whatever, right? Like so, I actually think that those games are super fun, and I think they're way more accessible than people realize. I just think that there's kind of like this weird stigma about them being super impossible, and so a lot of people miss out on how fun they are. Because to me, it's like those types of games do it better than any other genre, like the difficulties of the bosses, because it's like a boss that seems so impossible when you first walk in, later in the game can be like a trash mob, right? And I think that's like that progression is really, really well done, and so much better than most games that just like now it has 1,000 times the HP and one-shots you, like that stuff is just not an interesting difficulty curve.
Yeah, I mean, I was having a lot of fun watching different people play through it because I guess it was like the final boss of the DLC, like the Radon or whatever his name was just hard walling everybody. Like I was tabbing to like Sneaky, Double Lift, like everyone, and they were just like stuck on this boss. So it was fun watching people progress on it.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was a good game. I beat him the other night, and I was actually expecting it to take way longer. I was like thinking it was going to take me like a lot of time, so I was getting so mentally prepared for it, and then I beat it in 30 minutes. So I was kind of disappointed because I was like, okay, there's all this build-up, but I feel like sometimes it's so dependent on your build stuff. It's really fun though. We also have a couple other things we want to talk about. Soft inting is a big topic right now because it was Riot poo-poo lasers. Poo-poo lasers? Pew-poo lasers? I don't know. It's P-P-U-P-U. Looks like poo-poo lasers, I'm not going to lie. It's probably... League will be looking into increased detection of and punishment for soft inting, which is a large problem in the game.
Oh, slow down. We're not going past that one.
Read out the name for me. Does it not look like poo-poo lasers?
I'm just imagining some regular League of Legends players logging into a game, and in the loading screen, they see official Riot poo-poo lasers queuing up against them.
If it was Pew, it'd be like P-E-W. That's how I read Pew. I'm just saying it looks like poo-poo lasers.
Right.
League is, this is a tweet. League will be looking into increased detection of and punishment for soft inting, which is a large problem in the game. Now that we have machine ID info with Vanguard, how quickly should we transition punishment from account level to hardware level? Immediately or some lenient? So hardware level is like an actual PC ban. You would need to buy a new computer to do it. I've heard some hacker people talking about this. There was some people responding to this saying that it's not actually true. You can like spoof your ID and do all this. I don't know any of the technical stuff of that or if that's actually true, but essentially it's talking about account level versus like your PC can no longer play League of Legends.
Yeah, I actually have a fairly strong opinion on this where I feel like you should just get them out, like just hard ban people. And I thought it was interesting because there was a Reddit thread, I think it was like, #1 this past week or something, where there was so much pushback on it. And I actually expect that. I think that, in my mind, the like sad truth of League is that the just behavior of the player base has gotten so bad.
It's the worst part of the game.
Yeah, it scares regular people away, which is like really, really sad. And so you have this like survivorship bias of just like toxic people, and they're going to be opposed to any, like changes in behavior. Like if they're going to be harder on punishment, people aren't going to like that because they're like, oh, I'm going to get banned then. So I think it's kind of expected that there's going to be pushback on it. But I mean, whether it's soft inting or any of this stuff, it feels really bad as a player when, I'm not perfect. I'm not claiming to be like the perfect summoner or whatnot, but the stuff that I see just like so regularly playing is just like it makes the game just so painful sometimes.
And the frustration builds up with multiple layers and with people, doing it repeatedly. I am a little on the concern side because I'm a bit worried about the identification of soft inting. I'm pretty down with like harsh punishments for some of the things that are truly, truly abrasive and actually like make the experience horrible instantly for players. But I feel like soft inting is like a little bit down the slope, the slippery slope, I guess, of offenses.
You don't think it's really bad though?
I do think it's really bad, but I don't think that, because I don't have trust in them identifying it. Like if we're going to say that you have to join every team fight, I've had people like completely freak out and rage at me because I'm pretty sure the optimal play is to take this tower, and everyone's like, why aren't you coming to steal Baron from these guys that are 10,000 gold ahead of us? Something like that. Like it could be legitimate, some of these reasons. And in this PC article that I saw that was written about it, part of their description of soft inters is like, oh, it could be somebody who doesn't join your team fight or doesn't come to objectives and just stays in a side lane. And I'm like, well, that also describes split pushing. And, what type of champion is this person playing? Obviously, there's also, nuances. It gets down to like all these Teemo players and people that get really out there with roaming top laners. And then you have to go into it. Do people really enjoy playing the game when they've got a Janna top or something that is a legitimate strategy that's actually trying to win, but like completely warps the game for everybody else? And it gets really complicated. So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant to hand out hardware bans for stuff like this. Honestly, I'm down for hardware bans for other, to me, more extreme things. But like soft inting is also such a big problem in higher ranks where, people have people on their int lists and you're just like, well, I know how to not get identified. I can do it softly here by like looking close or like wasting my flash or playing something worse than I thought. And it's basically the same as completely inting your game, but it's not going to get identified by these things. So it's such a complicated issue to me, because if you could perfectly identify them, then I'd say go for it. But I think it's really hard to perfectly identify these instances.
So I'll take a step back. So soft inting, if you guys haven't heard the term or don't know what it is, it's generally like where you've given up on winning the game and you're not doing what you think is the best play to win the game. Like you might just be, traditionally a lot of people would say, okay, it's like they die in a 1v1 and then they just walk down top lane over and over and just like keep fighting the person and dying over and over again and things like that. They're not actually like running into towers and killing themselves. They'll just like, basically do something that they don't think is going to win the game, but they're still playing, right? So they don't want to get banned. They don't want to be like super
it's
obvious
like quiet
about it.
Quitting, where because this happens a lot in League where people know what the punishable behaviors are, so they just go right up to that line.
Yeah,
they're like, I'm not going to cross the line, but I'm going to do everything in my power up until that point to not win the game because I hate my teammates.
They're not going to sell all their items and buy
they don't
5
deserve
tiers and run
LP,
into the
right?
tower.
That thing. And so actually, to talk to Kobe's point, I think I'm more talking about like the hardware bans, like more strict punishment for people doing really abrasive stuff. I do agree that with soft inting, it's a super, super gray area. So I don't really know how you would properly, automate that, because, as soon as people know what the parameters are, that they're checking for, they're just going to keep walking up to that line, right? And there's no way you can really get people to stop being malicious and stop,
But you can improve it, right? Like, and isn't it good, even if they'll go up that line, to move the goalpost to a better place? Because I think it's actually the worst part about League of Legends is that how quickly people give up on games. There's such a ridiculous percentage of games that I play, and it's a big reason that I often don't play without playing with like a squad of friends.
You don't think it's worse when people are telling you to kill yourself and are actually hard
Well,
inting?
I have chat all muted. I don't get that many hard enters. Like people who are literally running into the tower and stuff. I think that's very rare in my games. I'm only talking about my experiences. Whereas the soft ending stuff, I feel like is so ridiculously common, and it makes me not want to play the game. Like when I queue up and I get someone who's just like one person dies and then the person is basically just given up on the game, right? And they're like you die 2v2 bot and then your support just goes lanes with the mid laner for the rest of the game. It's like, okay, well the game's over, we've lost, and this one person has decided that.
Yeah.
Like I hate that, and so I would rather, like, I do think there needs to be some sort of process where people are reviewing some of these things and making sure that it isn't just like regular split pushers and these kinds of strategies, because it's a valid point that like if these people are getting caught in the crossfire, that's really messed up. But I would want them to be way more strict and to ban these people, and if you go a little bit too far, then start reviewing it and unbanning. But it's like shifting the goalpost to a place where it's harder to get away with soft inting, I think is such a positive for the game, because it ruins so many games. And I cannot stand when one person decides the outcome for the entire game, and it's just way too common in League, and especially in this like era of video games where I feel like it's almost so many people with kind of like the TikTok attention span that less people want to play like a long drawn out game. And then if you get into this game that it's going to take you like 10 minutes in queue and 5 minutes in draft and then 35 minutes in game, to have that one person ruin that, and it's like that's an hour of your time gone, is just a horrible, horrible, horrible experience.
Oh, I mean, I definitely agree with that. There's this quote that lives rent-free in my head that I saw from he's a streamer named Clint Stevens, I think it is. He's like a Super Mario speedrunner. And someone asked him about League of Legends, and he was like, yeah, isn't that the game where it's just like all the angry people play, and they just like, they play to look for an excuse to like give up. And I was just like, wow, that is actually true.
Oh my God.
And I just that always comes back to me, and it's like it is correct. I think what you said about needing manual review is something that like I don't know any other way around it for these behavior things.
See, that's my issue. Like, I 100% agree that it is a big problem, and we can turn the screws on it and get better at identifying it and punishing it. But I'm hesitant. The part I'm hesitant on is going with this automated system that I don't trust yet, and jumping to hardware bans, because then you can't play League, right?
Yeah.
And so I have seen people with chat logs where their chat log is like, they said, hey, don't do that, and you're chat banned, right? And so I'm imagining that scenario with this, and you're like, well, I didn't soft int, like I didn't have caffeine today. I play way better. Like how like small is the line going to get?
I was playing blindfolded.
Riot is not
drunk brand, maybe jungle or something, right?
Riot is not going to try to hardware ban people for no reason, though, right? Because that's killing your own player base, and that's taking away people who are potentially going to be buying skins and doing that.
That's what the question is, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
how quickly should they move to that, right? But I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's like they would only be doing that anyway in the most extreme circumstances. I just can't imagine them ever doing anything other than that, because you don't want to just be permabanning people left and right? Like it's a severe thing. So to me, like I say go for it, like get aggressive with it, and then as long as they're willing to actually do manual reviews and stuff. I feel like people super exaggerate how easy it is to get banned and whatnot, and I know there are some examples of at least seemingly innocuous chat logs. I also have seen some of those reviewed though, where I've seen sometimes someone will post, oh, this was my chat log, and then it's like they didn't include the entire chat log where they were saying racist stuff or horrible things. Like, I've played League for so long, I've gotten frustrated in League. I type to people. I've never once gotten chat restricted. I've never once gotten suspended. I've never had any of that stuff to me. Like, I don't cuss people out or anything, but sometimes I do get mad, and I'm like, and someone says something to me and I say something back, right? But it's like I've never said anything extreme, and I feel like you have to generally say like pretty targeted things or pretty bad words to actually get chat restricted. So for me, I guess maybe I'm less worried about people getting in the crossfire. As far as like a higher percentage of people, I do think there would be some of those niche cases where the kind of real question becomes, what about some of these more divisive play styles like the Baus? Like, he plays like this inting Scion and stuff, and at his best, he gets really high elo, and like I've seen him be like 1K LP, and sometimes probably even higher. Playing this style where he's averaging like 12, 14 deaths a game or whatever, right? And a lot of people would call that inting. So it's like, is that a legitimate play style? Is like proxy singed? I remember watching this challenger Singe main who would have horrible score lines because he would literally triple proxy in the enemy base and like cut all the waves, and people would just chain kill him, but they'd lose the game. And so it's like these kind of strategies, I guess the question is, should those people be in the crossfire? Or it's like, if people hate playing with it so much, is it okay that those people get banned? Like that's, I think, kind of the bigger question for this that I would want to have answered.
Yeah, I mean, it's for sure a slippery slope when you start like trying to define like the constraints of like what is allowable
Chemo
behavior.
support main, or a bard who only roams. And
I mean, people have different views on what's the optimal play in any given game as well, even pro players. So, I just feel like there's a lot of angles to dissect. We can definitely get better than where we are right now, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Way better.
Because right now, very little.
There are concerns about false positives and people who have those like higher death play styles and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, I think you shouldn't be banned for just dying as long as you're trying to actually win the game. Yeah. But I mean, anyone who plays League knows that's really not where we're at right now. It's very much the case of like, so many people are like, yeah, League of Legends, that's a really toxic game, right? Like I'm scared to play that game. And it's just like, that shouldn't be the case. It's an awesome game. It's super fun when people are, being like civil to one another.
Yeah.
So I would 100% like to see more, action taken against these people who are just kind of ruining it for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like I agree with what you were saying earlier. I think, Kobe, where it's just like, it comes down to how good can you make the guidelines for what this is, right? Because there are like, you can't just do it off of grouping. Even if you're really strong as a top laner, sometimes, the rest of your team is doing really poorly and you can't actually win if you group, right? Your only chance is just running it down a side lane and hoping you can get 1v2 kills and then join the team and things like that. And certain champions are really bad at team fighting, but very good in the side lanes. So it's like some of those play styles, as long as they want to continue supporting them, that's like the way to play the game. So I do think that makes it pretty complicated.
Yeah, and I think there are some clear things. Like I say, we can get a way better than where we are right now. Because where we are right now, I have people in my games that will completely stop CSing, will stand in the same area, not go AFK because they know if they get the AFK warning,
you in the jungle,
then they
and
move.
try to steal your camps.
Follow you in the jungle, steal your Gromp, steal your Scutocrat. These types of things, I feel like those are the measures that are easily identifiable and should be jumped on first. And we maybe go with a progression here. Because I'm like, oh, if this guy normally plays games and has 10 CS a minute, oh, interesting, in this game, 0 CS from 20 minutes on. Something is going on here. Like, that's not normal. It's a 30-minute game, or stuff like that. I feel like is, at least an easier, like, lower-hanging fruit maybe thing to identify.
Yeah. I mean, you'll never be able to get it perfect, because if someone is really trying to play the margins, it's like, okay, I'm gonna farm the whole game and I'm gonna do this, but then I'm just gonna miss all my skill shots intentionally in a team fight and die. Like, you're never gonna be able to detect everything perfectly, but at a certain point, you're moving it more towards like, if it's so difficult to do and such a pain to do, less people hopefully will do it, and hopefully it would discourage it. Is my my thought or my hope, because it is like, as you see, Meteos, it's unfortunately one of the things that people talk about most with League is that it's this toxic game, or it's this game where people are gonna be like bully you and stuff. It's like lots of my friends quit playing because they felt like it was too toxic. Which is really unfortunate, because I do think it's such an incredible game, especially when you're playing with like a group of people who are all working on the same page, which is why I love playing, and why I mostly play with like a squad of friends, because it's so much fun when you're all together working towards something. But I, for one, am definitely really happy if they start getting more aggressive with this stuff, because I feel like if you want to solve those problems, you have to just start dealing with those other things that are going to come with it.
Yeah, I mean, the soft inters are not bullying people though, because they don't want to get identified.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, but there's multiple problems. Obviously. Yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, hopefully they can make some good changes for the game. There's also been a lot of topics about red side, blue side, and how, especially at high elo, it can be like really, really skewed, the win rates. For normal play, this is like less of an issue, but I think Froxon had a tweet about this where he said they've been investigating this for a bit now. They've been trying to work on some things for optimized queue times, off roll, and secondary parity, blue side, red side balance, and a few other things. They were talking about like autofill junglers versus not at like elite levels, potentially trying to have it so if one team has a fill jungler, the other team would have to have a fill jungler, and these different things. What's your guys' take on kind of the like red side, blue side advantage, especially at high levels?
Well, a lot of this conversation also started with Surti posting how he, got highest LP in NA or EU ever, and then everyone's looking at his op.gg and they're like, 19 of your last 20 games are on red side. And so that kind of prompted this further discussion, and Froxon talking about the balance that has been in the game for so long because of the difference in camera angles and the advantage for blue side. They had put it into the matchmaking system. It is hard baked into the matchmaking system to put the higher elo players onto the red side. And so you, theoretically, in each of these games, have the better players, have the higher rating to try and balance out the difference in sides. But with the map changes for this year, plus with the increased duration that people have been able to play and adjust to the differences, that has started to go away, plus the changes in metas as far as counter pick versus first pick always fluctuate.
For top lane,
they always fluctuate, and they're also, those are way more extreme in the higher ratings as well, has kind of contributed to this. And so, I mean, for me, I'm like, well, I want this addressed pretty quickly, because if I'm just looking at it, 7% or so masters and higher data as far as your win rate difference, 7+% win rate for red side. Theoretically, like I should be dodging at least my first game dodge of the day, my first blue side that I get. Like if you're trying to climb and min max at Apex tiers, is it like that's not good to have it like optimal and to be able to like gain that much percentage, like if you dodge one. So
yeah,
it's a pretty interesting one to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like in general, I'm weary of any of the like super complicated matchmaking things that they do. Like what you were saying is, oh, we're going to try to compensate for this camera angle by skewing matchmaking to make the higher MMR team have this slight disadvantage or whatever. Like, I think that's super weird. I would rather them just try to do things in the game to make the sides more balanced. But one of the things that I've wanted for a long time, specifically for pro play, but I think also in solo queue, would be to detach the picking order from the side of the map. I think that because there's so many different factors for blue and red side, right? But the fact that blue side always has had first pick, red side always has last pick, it's like how much of that is a bigger factor than the actual just geometry of the map, like being on the right versus the left, right? So I would like to see that done first, separate it, and then you can look at it more saying like, okay, is the side with counter pick just winning more games because, getting that counter pick is so important, or is it really just the geometry of the map? It's like the team that's on red has an easier time playing the game, or is it this artificial MMR thing they're doing with the map? Like, there's just so many different factors at play. I feel like if you don't separate it, it's really hard to tell like what's actually influencing it.
Yeah, it's always like it's a topic that comes up from time to time at different tournaments for pro play too. Whenever people start to notice a trend, even though pro play is usually like very small sample size, and so the data can be warped by whatever super good team is capable of abusing a strategy. But I think it came up at MSI, even at this most recent MSI that we had too.
Yeah, and it's usually blue side advantage. And like I know in LPL right now, it's crazy blue side favored, but there's so few games. There's only been 27 games, but 63% win on blue side. But then LCK is literally 50-50 exactly with 76 games played. So it's like it can be really, really skewed, but it's always hard to know, as you say, because of sample size.
Yeah, and the pro play ones I feel like are heavily influenced by the draft.
Yeah, it's super draft dependent, especially when it's like blue side can be pretty advantaged when there's like too many OPs that red side is then having to like mandatory ban to try to, it kind of like takes away your target bans and stuff. So it can be definitely a different problem. But I mean, it is something where even if it is only affecting the Apex tiers, it's really important that those players, I think, are having a good experience as well, because those are a lot of the streamers, those are a lot of the pros, those are a lot of the content creators and stuff that, your average player is also like, even if they're never going to be in those games, are still like consuming content from. And I think it's important to have people at all levels enjoying the game and having a good experience, because it's the dodge thing that you said. You're talking about that potentially. One of my friends who's really high rated, he actually does that. He dodges blue side every game. He gets it if he can. If the timer isn't getting
Wow.
isn't getting really high.
The timer goes up pretty fast now.
As much as he can.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe he won't do it twice
Yeah.
in a row or whatever. But yeah, he was saying that's like a big part of his strategy for climbing. Because if you think about it, 7% is actually insane, right? Like if you look at win rate of champions, like that, I'm curious right now if that's like more than the top and bottom win rate for it. Like, you know what I mean? Because it's like usually the spread is not actually that big.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's such a huge factor. I don't want that to be something that I consider.
Yeah.
If I have to dodge, it's like I got autofilled to something. I'm notoriously bad at playing other roles, and so I'm like, okay,
So,
I got to dodge.
Highest win
something
rate
like
to literally lowest tracked win rate right now is 7%. So it's a 7% spread, but and people would think you're insane for playing like some absolute trash champion, like considered the worst of the worst win rate champion. And climbing, it's such a big difference, right? Because you can get to the top of the ladder if you play enough games by having a 51% win rate, right? Like you just have to win slightly more than you lose, and you will climb if you're spamming those games. So I definitely think they have to do something about it, or it will become more extreme. Especially now that like the data's out there and people have talked about it, it becomes one of those things where it becomes a bit of like the self-fulfilling prophecy, where it becomes a bigger issue because people know about it, and then more people are like, oh well, I should be dodging on blue side, and then it becomes kind of an endless cycle.
And
especially
everyone's
when
dodging. Cause like then we went into
Exactly.
this problem before, which this problem was even bigger. That's why they increased the penalties on dodging, because we were waiting hours sometimes. I just get dodges after dodges after dodges. And do the math. If everyone's dodging on blue side, that's literally every game. So
Dude,
nobody gets to play.
I can't stand dodging.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
anything that incentivizes dodging is just cringe.
I have always thought that the later you dodge in champ select, the more severe the punishment should be. I get so unreasonably mad when someone dodges last second, because champ select, the whole process is so long, especially when it's
Dude,
like
it's so
the
long.
queue pops. Sometimes you're waiting like 10 minutes for a queue or whatever. Then someone declines the queue, and then you're waiting another minute. Then it pops. Then like you go through the whole champ select, and then the last second someone dodges, and then you're back into the queue. It's just like sometimes like, well, you know what? I'm not gonna play.
Yeah.
Dude, I wish they would just speed up champs. Like it could be like 3 times faster, bro. Like I don't need 30 seconds to pick my champion. Like
I agree.
let's speed
People
it
have
up.
been
Let's speed it up.
conditioned because it's so slow
To go to the bathroom
that
and
now they
stuff.
do other stuff also, and so
Yeah.
now they're like, oh, well, it has to be slow because people are doing other stuff. No, make it fast.
Yep.
And then people will be conditioned to be like, okay, I cannot leave right now. Like I just queued up for this game. I clicked yes. I clicked okay. I'm picking this champion. I'm banning this champion. I completely agree. Like, make it faster.
Is this too hot of a take? I mean, do you think that there should even be like maintain pick order for solo queue, or should it just be like people can like are just like locking like all at once or something, like blind pick?
Blind pick? Probably not.
Yeah. Would you rather just be like 10 seconds per person?
Yeah, I
Just
would.
make
I
it
mean,
super
because I
fast.
feel like
Yeah.
All 10 bans instantly.
I like
and then 10 seconds
the
per person?
order. I like the order and kind of the phasing, but
'Cause
just
it
reduce
is-
the timers.
It is interesting to think about, right? Because it's just like, where can you shave time off the game? Because I feel like a lot of people think that in general, it just takes too long to play a game of League, and that's one of the things that stops a lot of new players from joining the game. So it's like thinking about where you shave off time. I know like in Wild Rift it's a lot faster, and people talk about how there's like basically no laning phase. But to me, the laning phase has always been one of the most interesting things in League, right? And I always really enjoy that part. So like I didn't like when I tried Wild Rift, and it just felt like you're just going straight into team fights.
It's just that everyone's going to try and counterpick. So if everyone's picking at the same time and it's blind, then you play this new game where everyone's waiting until the last second until they try and see your icon.
Well, I guess it would have to be literally full blind pick, but then
Right.
it wouldn't work
But
because they
the-
have double champions.
you need
stuff.
bans, yeah,
Yeah.
so-
It wouldn't work. Yeah.
But it is interesting.
It's just like, thinking about ways that could be faster
Yeah.
to get in. Because it really does just de-incentivize, at least me, from playing when I have a super long queue. Sometimes I just give up and do something else.
Yeah. A lot of these discussions also have like other sides of arguments to them, like we were talking about in our first discussion, because one of the arguments when people were first discussing increasing the penalties for people who dodge was sometimes I have to dodge because somebody is taking over my champion select and threatening to play something completely
down or
useless,
whatever.
run it down, these types of things. Hostage taking
Yeah.
for champ select is still a common thing, and it's another one of these scenarios, kind of like punishing soft inters and stuff, where we're like, well, ideally I do. However, how do we protect against some of these like real world issues to get around it? And that one was always tough for me too. Because I get people hostage taking in my lobbies every day.
It is, but at the same time with that one specifically, it's like the less penalty there is to dodge, the more power the hostage takers have because they know someone will do it, right? If it's actually a big penalty to dodge, then people aren't likely to do it. And then if that guy actually loads into the game with like cleanse ghost Yuumi jungle,
Then they
then
lose.
like that's just the most easy ban ever. Like it sucks, but it's gonna like no matter what, like this person's doing this
It's true.
behavior,
Yeah.
it sucks for everyone. I just feel like the solution of dodging isn't actually a solution because it just creates an even bigger problem in my mind.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point because usually people are doing the hostage taking to force a dodge, right? They
Yeah.
lock something horrible to force someone else to dodge.
That requires following up with actually punishing them when you load into the game.
Yeah.
Because I'm also at the point where I'm like, yeah, fine, I'll play it. I'm going to report this person if I knew that was going to do something.
And if you got your LP refunded,
Yeah.
then it would feel really good.
Yeah, I mean, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
But I'm at the point now where I'm like, I don't care. I'll take a loss as long as we can,
We're
punish,
going down together.
punish this asshole.
Yeah, I mean, so many of these things just comes back to like, I think most people who play would just like to see more punishment for the people ruining it. And, until that happens, I don't really know.
And if it gets more strict over time, then hey, maybe the community as a whole just kind of gets better, right? And could be pretty cool. We are going to have
Punishment for everyone.
punishment for
I've
everyone.
decided.
We'll send
You
free
won me over.
Dude,
free
I don't know.
house to house,
Bro,
with a sword.
people worry so much.
He knocks on your door.
People worry so much about these, like, these cases of like, false positives and whatever. It's just like, man, just be a reasonable person, play to win the game, and it's never going to affect you. It's like, it's always the bad actors that are the ones being like, it's the same thing when Vanguard was getting added to the PC, like all the botting communities and whatever were like being like, oh, it's Chinese spyware, it's all those problems, and it's just like, yeah, that's not what's happening. It's just like the bad actors are going to try to make it seem like a bigger problem than it would be. If you're just a normal person who's playing a game for fun and to win, you'll be fine.
And as long as you have manual reviews for the niche cases, then I think it's totally fine. But we are going to have Sope coming on, the product lead for Swarm, to talk about that. So we will be right back.
Hello?
Bro, why are you parking?
Seriously? What is that?
Remote smart parking assist. You could have parked anywhere.
They could have parked there. They could have parked there. They could have parked there.
And we're back. We've got Sope May, the product lead for Swarm, to have a full Swarm discussion. Welcome, welcome.
Glad to be here.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about maybe like what you do at Riot and what you kind of have done, your league background a little bit.
Yeah, I've been at Riot for about 10 years actually, and done a lot of different things. I pushed out the game every 2 weeks as a release manager. I've worked some live events in NA on the North American regional team. Did some esports digital stuff, so the drops that you guys get from watching esports, in the background clicking drop. That was how low-key ghetto it was, how we gave you guys drops. But and then I went over to the gameplay team and did preseason 2022, 2023, did a few champions like Nefiri, Hui, and recently Aurora, as well as now the Swarm product lead.
So how was working on Swarm? Like, what were you guys kind of goals for this? Because this is obviously like heavily inspired, I'm assuming, by like Vampire Survivors and this type of genre. I play a lot of those games, so when you guys were coming, like, were you trying to do something different, trying to just do that league style? Like, what was kind of the goal?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted a PvE game mode, and with the surgence of Survivor type games, we thought that there might be potential here. Luckily enough, one of our devs decided to do a prototype of it, got some higher up leaders excited about it. I was brought in and we put together, kind of a cohesive project, a product like goal. And part of it was, hey, how do we make something like this in League? And I think the part of it that would stand apart from the rest of them is the co-op version. And that's where we really kind of index towards. I can talk about the product goals if that's interesting to you guys.
Well, what is the feature that you are most happy that you were able to get into the game that differentiates it from other games of this type? Like, what's the most exciting thing that you accomplished in there?
I'm going to cheat and say two within the same one. The champions themselves, right? Like, we had to reimagine them for this whole entire game mode. It's not just plopping in Yasuo or Jinx from League of Legends, but thinking about how they work within this game mode and how they can shine in a Survivor-like, right? So with that, we also wanted to make sure there was collaborative play, right? So co-op. We wanted that to be a first-class citizen, and it was something that we thought about and even got pushback, like, hey, why are you trying to do something that no one else has done well yet? And should we be doing that with the timeline that you have? And we pulled it off, I think.
So did you guys design it mostly with like co-op in mind, right? We got to watch a show match today, but I haven't actually played it yet. So is it like, would you say that the experience is mostly for playing with friends, like not so much to play by yourself?
No, I wouldn't say that. We knew that solo players would exist, and we also didn't want to, remove them from our audience. So you can play it solo. I would say it is harder. There is a mechanic where you can revive. That doesn't exist when you're solo. There's no one to revive you. You die and you play again, which is fine if you're a little bit more hardcore. But if you wanted an easier, more collaborative experience, co-op's the way to go.
So Meteos has actually play tested it because me and Azael just watched. But I asked you what your favorite feature was. I want to ask you what's your most frustrating. Like, what's your biggest complaint after play testing it?
Ooh, biggest complaint.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't get all the way through the game or anything, so like obviously I haven't seen everything.
Yeah.
We saw the first couple levels. I think the part that I had the most trouble with was on the boss fights with having 4 people who all have like, in these Survivor type games, like you upgrade your powers and they get like crazy. So with all the effects going around, and it's not just the boss having their own effects, but like I don't know what their attacks are, so I don't even know what I'm looking for. I was getting really, really disoriented during the fights and just like perma-dying because like I didn't know what
Red circles everywhere.
You suck.
I mean, yeah, it is, but it was just like so busy on my screen that I probably, if I played the game more and I'm like more used to everything, it wouldn't be as much of a problem, but I was definitely struggling there.
Those games do have that issue for sure. I was literally just playing one that Flowers recommended to me because we were talking about this today because we were watching a show match. So I went home and I was playing Soulstone Survivors, and it's like at certain points your entire screen is just a spell effect, right? And it can get very chaotic and very difficult to see. Is that something that you guys were kind of worried about, like visual clutter, when you were doing it, or was that just like, hey, this is just the genre?
A bit of both, right? Because we don't want you to be... I mean, you can opt into it by taking more and more projectiles, but at a certain point, we need to give you the opportunity to dodge mechanics that will kill you, especially in the higher difficulty levels. In fact, we just put in the fix where there's a little bit more translucency, so you'll see those red circles on the ground better, and you can run around with it. But it is a bullet heaven, right? Like you want to see tons of VFX on the screen, and we, went into the engine and made it work for the game mode. So we do want it there, but not to the point where you're just kind of having to close your eyes because you can't see anything.
I have a question. Just today, I've heard this term bullet heaven that you used, and I've never heard of it before. Is it different from bullet hell? Is it like just the same concept?
Optimistic version.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just curious. It's new to me.
So from how I understood it, and the way I feel when I play the game is, as a bullet hell, you're trying to avoid damage with tons of bullet coming at you, right? Whereas in this genre, things are coming at you, and you're trying to shoot as many bullets out of you as possible. Right?
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
it's at the inverse that you're the weapon, you're the thing
So
that's.
the NPCs are in hell.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that makes sense. Yeah,
You're the devil.
Because normally bullet hells, yeah, like you say, it's just dodging, and so bullet
Yeah.
heavens, like where you're also fighting. That makes sense.
How long did you actually play today, Meteos?
I would say we played maybe like 3 hours total.
How far did you get?
We got to, the second boss. We actually we had
He's starting to
such
smirk.
we had such a crazy wipe. The boss was like 1% health, and we thought he
jumped
was
it?
dead. I mean, I was legit feeding the whole time. Yeah, it was brutal. So we got pretty much through like the first 2 levels.
How many levels are there?
4 total, and I'll just give a bit of data on that. The average person on PBE that beat all 4 levels was about 3.5 hours.
Oh.
Well, I mean, maybe we weren't playing the whole time.
What difficulty level are you guys playing? Because there's difficulties as well, right?
I don't know. I mean, we were just on the starter one, but I think there was like a little bit of technical difficulties in the middle of it. So it was like we kind of had like start over our character progression.
Here come the excuses.
Yeah.
Well, part of it is that you're supposed to fail at the beginning and get money first, right? And
Yeah,
then you
'cause it's a
buy
rogue
stuff to get
light.
stronger.
Yeah, exactly. I don't anticipate anyone being able to beat it the first time through, even with 4-player co-op. You just can't do enough damage. And once you die, though, you have gold that you'll invest in money or armor. Sorry, not money, damage or armor. And that's where you get stronger. You'll feel it when you go back into the game next, and that's where you kind of progress and get to the next level. So each level, 4 of the levels have 2 additional difficulties. So once you beat all 4 of them, you can play the next 4, the same maps at a 2nd difficulty level. Then when you beat all 4 of those, you get the 3rd difficulty level.
So I've also heard that this is, the rotating game mode and it is going to go away for now. But I think it was already tweeted out that you're looking at how successful it is to determine if you want to bring it back as a more robust game mode. Do you have any metrics that you're actually judging it by, or is it a feel it out? Success?
We're a little bit more methodical than just to feel it out. But there is.
My cousin Jimmy said it's really fun, so I guess we're bringing it back.
What's the numbers that we have to hit if people want this game mode?
So we want most of our players to be looking at like 10 plus hours investing in playing it. These aren't like hard numbers across the board, right? We want to see engagement overall with our game mode. That's why Survivor likes are better, because they have a longer tail than, say, Star Guardian, Invasion, and Odyssey Extraction. Those kind of tons of engagement, but then dropped off pretty quickly. So there's a combination of how much time you spend in it, how often you come back to it. There's also an element to like, hey, how much does that keep you in our league ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
Where, hey, you're playing a Survivor game, Swarm game.
Do you queue up for ARAM after?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like ARAM, you're kind of a little bit even locked in at 15 minutes or so, right? Like if you were between, you don't want to quite jump into that next ranked game, I'll play a game of Swarm. And then if I'm ready to go, or my friend logs online, I can just kill myself and I got progression and I'm ready to go, right?
Yeah.
You're never like, I'm waiting for his ARAM game to finish before I start my next game with him.
I had a couple questions. Going back to like what we were talking about. So you mentioned the different difficulties. Is it just a numbers getting higher thing, like the enemies have more health and damage, or is it like there's more mechanics put in?
There's some of that. I wouldn't say that there's more mechanics. I think some of the waves get augmented. For the most part, you're looking at modifications to how much damage they do, how much health they have, and so you're feeling that, right? There is the scariest ones are the ones that kind of they ignore the movement path. Like there's someone that's the artillery mob that just drops a big old thing on you. In level 2, depending on if you spec into health or armor, can one-shot you if you don't dodge that actual thing. Where previously you're like, okay, cool, I'm strong enough, I can probably take a few shots.
Okay, that's cool.
So how long do you think, you said 3.5 hours is what people took on average to beat the 4 levels. So is that for all the difficulty levels or for the
Oh,
base
just the
difficult-
first one,
Okay,
yeah.
so how long do you think it's actually going to take people to try to beat the whole thing? Or like, basically, like, is there enough content that you think people will want to play this 10 hours? Because when I think about it, like for me in these kind of games, you talk about like the out of game progression system and things like that. Once that's maxed out, it's like, do you want to keep going back and going in? Like, you expect that to take 10 hours to actually max out? Or are people supposed to be kind of like done the progression system in 3 hours? Or like, what kind of shelf life are you thinking?
It's going to take more than just the 10 hours, 20 hours, maybe even 30 to get it all,
Oh, wow.
honestly. Yeah,
Okay.
because we have this like top tier if you're really an achiever to get anima power, right? Anima power is about 100 levels where you spend your gold towards incrementally increases your strength across various statistics. And you can max that and like I beat the game by getting max anima power. It also is something that is helpful when you're trying to get the final objective achievement, which is to beat the final boss, which is Aatrox, with every single Swarm champion.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, folks. He's not in the trailer at all, but no, he is. But yeah, that one actually we will reward you with like the apex title of like Swarm Conqueror if you achieve that within your titles.
So I feel like a lot of people will tune into this because they want, some tips and tricks or, strategies or something like that. Do you have any recommendations or any extra insight for dive viewers only?
Yeah, dive viewers only. If you don't know how to WASD yourself across the map, learn how to do that first. We remind you every time you start the first map that it is WASD instead of click to move, like League. Because if you go from a League game, then come back to it, you might forget. Do that. I think evolves. Like, it's basically the level 6 of every weapon. Evolves equals winning, right? So the more you get of them, the more likely you'll be able to beat every map. In order to evolve, you actually have to have the stat associated with it. So, for example, I think it's Bladeorang that we have. It's like the first weapon that you unlock. If you have movement speed, you can evolve that to the level 6, right? So, and it's really cool. And it's also really fun to see and helps you win the game.
Does it tell you that stuff in game?
Not quite. So
Viewers only.
It does.
Okay.
It doesn't say it when you're being offered the thing for the first time, but if you press tab, it'll give you like a list of all the different power-ups you can get and then which abilities it upgrades, but it's just the icons. So like if you don't know the icons, then
Okay.
you're not going to know. But I mean, when you have the thing, you can hover over it with your mouse and it'll say like, evolved by, and then
Yeah.
whatever stat you need.
We also helped the more common people who don't read tooltips, and you know how many of those.
I'm using that. Common people.
Common people.
So the LCS pros.
The majority. We in the card when you draft it, it'll give you the stat associated with it or the
Picture book.
the pitch. Yeah, so you see the weapon that this stat will give you the evolve for.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's helpful. If you need to be reminded of it, there is a tab button that shows you all the kind of the recipes on the left side, so you don't have to go to like a LOL wiki to get your information. And if you want to be creative, like, hey, what's your friend drafting, right? So the tab button shows you the rest of your teams, like what they're drafting, and you can either synergize or get something else different.
So how different would you say each playthrough is? Like, obviously, there's I think it's 9 characters or something
9,
like that. But even within like one character, like one of my favorite game in this genre is Death Must Die, and like, the powers that you get, there's basically like all these different gods, and then they have their different powers within that. So you could get like summons, or you could be doing a bleed build, or you could be doing, something that's like lightning based, or like stacking frost, or different debuffs, and like, you can augment that and kind of go for all these different styles, even within the same character. So like, would you expect, if I play Jinx 3 times in a row, is it going to be fairly different each time? Or is it more like you end up kind of just going for, okay, this is the build, and you end up doing it at the same time? Because that's one thing I found made me lose interest in Vampire Survivors, was that it felt too consistent, that you can basically get to the same build every time, and then you realize this is the best build, and then there's no more variety in the game because you're just going for like X, Y, and then Z.
Yeah, if you have your favorites, you're going to want to get them, right? I would say that in our game, champions are the differentiators, right? So you'll be playing a Jinx or a Leona, and you'll want to spec differently because their primary weapon is kind of forced on you as a specific evolve, right? So ability haste is something that Jinx evolves her, Pow Pow. Is it Pow Pow? Anyway, minigun. And that's her primary weapon. But when you're playing Leona and she's more tankier build, it's armor that you can evolve it with, and you'll draft into weapons that synergize with that. Because at first you only have about 3 or 4 stats that you can draft into. You don't have that full selection, so you won't be able to get all 5 weapon evolves. That'll kind of make it more fun. But there's also something else that you unlock, which is spires. Spires have, there are 3 types. There's a Belveth spire that kind of challenges you to give you more gold, experience, and level up. There's the Yumi spires that actually give you kind of little mini boons, but some of them are kiss curse, right? So metabolic overdrive, you can heal yourself, but you have 50% less health or something. Don't quote me on the percentage. We can tune that, right? But those give the play experience a little bit more. And if you're like a kind of a glutton for punish, you can actually get that one with like glass cannon, which drops your health even further, but you do a ton of damage, right? So there is variability in play with these spires that you can engage with.
You talking about the different guns made me think of the pros show match that we watched, and one of my main thoughts was that Jinx looks way more fun to play than Leona. The Leona looked not fun. I was like, I'm like the Leona and the Alawi. The melee characters definitely, seemed like they were having a harder time, but it was a group. So are these characters all balanced for single player? Have you guys like paid much attention to win rates or anything like that? Are they all individually balanced, or is it taken into consideration and thought that you're going to need like build a composition with a front line and a back line?
Yeah, it's we do both. We have a game analysis team that also helps out with this, right? Just like League, we look at what's strong, what's not, what works well together. In fact, we nerfed Alawi recently because all of her tentacles were healing her teammates, right? It was a nice thing as an augment to like co-op play, but it was too strong.
OP.
Yeah, and so now she's only healing herself. But Seraphine, for instance, has her shielding ability that shields all of her teammates, and that helps survivability as well. As for herself, when she's trying to run through and past minions, I think the answer to it all is like we do both, and we try to make sure that they can win, but play differently, right?
Okay, so you can win with every character. So
I think that playing differently point is something that I felt a lot when I was playing it, because I think one new thing to the genre that Swarm has that I haven't seen in other games is like you have 2 abilities. You have your E and an R, and I only played 4 of the champs, like the Jinx, Seraphine, Alawi. Actually, I didn't even play Leona, so I only played 3.
Okay.
And they each have abilities that make them feel like they're league characters, and like their default attack is different. So I thought that was really cool. The way you want like different stats, and like on Jinx, when you kill a certain amount of units, you get her passive where you start going really fast and shooting faster. So I thought that was super cool. Like you did feel like the character, and it was funny because when I was pretty much everyone who played Alawi, including Dokla, he said like wow, like Alawi feels just like she does in Summoner Trip, just completely useless.
I didn't want to say it, but I was like, whoa.
yeah. And when I was playing her, I had a similar sentiment. I was just like, what am I doing?
So what's the if we're recommending people for solo play, what's the best ones for solo play? Because Jinx was looking like, as far as the opener ones, Jinx was looking the best.
Yeah, so what's interesting is that as you play, the next champion you unlock actually allows you to progress a little bit easier. So even though Leona doesn't appear to be super strong, it's depending on how you play. If you're always a damaged person, you don't want to play her. But if you're like a Holy Bible survivor, like Vampire Survivor type person, you might want to draft her into more health, and that kind of, you have the evolve there. And and there, earlier on, we had people who drafted into such high like survivability that they could just stand there and survive, right? I would recommend, once you get him unlocked, Yasuo is the one for me. His E ability, and by the way, our game mode allows you to remap the keys, so it's not necessarily E or R, and you can even map to your mouse click buttons. So it's a little kind of new feature that we have for the game. So I map my E and R to my left and right mouse button. He has a wind wall for survivability, separates the pack from you. You can attack one side, so you can focus where your damage is going, as well as when he dashes, he basically is in flow, gets his armor, and then does his EQ, right? So that's for me damage, and when he evolves his auto attack, he just throws tornadoes, lots of them, everywhere.
Are you biased because you already leaked before this show that you like Yasuo and Yone now for Summoner's Rift also? is that leaking in your recommendation?
I can't say it doesn't affect my opinion at all. I used to be an AD carry, and Jinx is actually highest mastery for me.
Okay, there we go.
Her, AD carry is how I got gold for the first time. So I still have my heart's still an AD carry main, even though I've abandoned AD carries. Yasuo for me, I think, also has a kind of special place in my heart for the roster, because if Swarm wasn't made, we probably wouldn't have had him as part of Anima Squad originally. There were other pitches for different champions. We asked for someone like, amongst the suite of champions we were asking for, Yasuo was one of them, and they came back to us with, yes, we can do that one. And I think his thematic sells really well.
So you got yourself a skin too. Nice.
I have one question. How come all the bad guys in the game are junglers, like Rek'Sai, Bel'Veth, Briar?
Same things in solo queue. Bad guys are always the jungler.
What's up with that?
Wait a second.
I mean, Aatrox is not. I mean, you can jungle with him. He's a top laner in my mind.
It's better than you would think. It's honestly not that bad.
Pre-rework attack speed Aatrox.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Pre-rework, one of my friends used to play Static Shift Lethality Aatrox jungle.
Okay, that is an evil man. Your friend is an evil person.
What? I don't even know how to start breaking that one down.
Do you have any concerns? Because to me, it's like I've played a lot of these games, so I know that the tank's gonna be strong, healer's gonna be strong. Traditionally, most people don't want to play it. They want to be the person doing the damage, right? Yeah. So can you have multiple of the same character? First off, I guess that would be my question. So you can all play Jinx. You could have 4 Jinxes.
You can have 4 Jinxes, 4 Lowys, making her more than useless.
Is that optimal though? Is it actually better to have a well-rounded comp, or is it?
At one point, it would have been. When we had some folks play it in player labs, they went all 4 Lowys. I think you saw Necrit's video on when he played it. He tried to go for that. I celebrated when they didn't beat Aatrox because I wanted to make sure that wasn't the ideal way of playing. Frankly, we're going to let it happen, and if it works, it works. I think we've kind of pushed against just having all 4 of one champion as the ideal way to play.
Yeah. That maybe makes sense. But I'm also glad to hear that you can have multiple people playing the same champion, and it's not just like a race to lock the one that people like, because that can be frustrating for sure in games.
Everyone's insta-locking duelists.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Seraphine, like when we played games with multiple Seraphines, that felt really good. Like,
how does the revive thing work? Because we were watching it and we saw the revive go off. Obviously, you can't do that in solo play, but do they have to like
Is it like
go
arena
over
where
to
you
you?
stand on
and-
them or something? Or
Yes, and there's also a like max time, right? So after you see the battery fill up, that's when you can step on the revive location to bring your teammate back to life. But if you survive long enough, there's also like the additional time that they will auto revive. That timer, however, is just incremental. The more you die, the longer it takes for you to revive. So, and it's not capped. So we had someone who I think had a 70 or 80-second revive timer
what
on
was
them.
yours, Meteos?
Against Briar, it was getting up there. Nah, that fight was wild.
So what would be next then for this game? Like, because you said, if it does well, maybe you're gonna kind of keep it around. Do you have any plans that you could share, or things that you would love to do for it in the future, or things maybe that you thought about doing that you guys didn't have time to get in?
Yeah, I think if we were to bring it back, there are just certain progression mechanics that are really engaging that we couldn't get to in the time that we were making it. Things like, what would it be to kind of progress as a champion? There's also like, hey, this was the thematic that worked best for it for the first time. Is there anything else that we could look at in terms of theming that we would want to look to kind of bring it back with? Yeah, it's. I'm hoping that we get a chance to kind of show this off and bring back a more expansive and more content drop like version of it.
What about PvP Swarm, where you fight another team against each other?
I think that would go against one of the pillars, which is collaborative play, and like so. This is like one of our kind of, I wouldn't say catchphrases, but guiding principles is this is League's chill co-op PvE, right? Like we don't want try hard version of like ranked. We even actually kind of pushed away a little bit from kind of a leaderboard because that kind of pushed more competitive play. We did explore it, and there are ways to kind of do that. And that might be another version we'll have, like, hey, maybe race to finish, the maps within a certain time, and where we can kind of display how hardcore you are. But yeah, I would say less likely of PvP. It's also hard to do. Not
One of you
hard.
plays the monsters.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, maybe
Team
that.
Jungle, we're the monsters.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really expect the answer to be yes, but it was something when I was playing it. It's like I always appreciate the like isometric, like WASD movement style games. Like there've been some in the past, like Battle Right,
Yeah.
which I think are pretty fun. I remember playing some random phone game that it was kind of like this cooperative PvE experience, but you're racing against another team, and there are ways to kind of like think Mario Kart where you like throw bananas at the other team, like just while you're both racing, there's ways to just disrupt them and whatnot.
It's
So
kind of like I don't know. Have you played Legion TD too?
No.
I was gonna say there's a bunch of tower TDs where you can send enemies over to them.
It's actually made by someone who used to work at Riot, Jules Gary. I don't know if you know him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they made that, and in that game it's like tower defense, like it's standard Legion TD, like you might have played in like I think it was in Dota literally originally, but you can spend your money on like obviously buying your own defenses or sending things to attack the other
like
people.
I think it's battle attaches or whatever that's called, where you can send blocks over lines to
A
someone
very
else,
similar
yeah.
idea. So it's
Yeah.
like the balancing of like how strong do I need to be to defend this versus like can I screw them over?
yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's really like it would be that good. Like I thought the game was fun, but if we're just spitballing here,
Yeah, I definitely hope that you hit the metrics at least necessary to get more time developing this and be able to do it again. Because I've been waiting for more PvE game modes, more modes of any kind for League ever since Dark Guardians. I had so much fun with it, but that was really like once you beat it, then you're just kind of done.
Yeah.
And so I was looking for more. So really hope that we get some more.
Do you think Riot would ever branch out and make like a standalone game like of this type?
It's tough to say, and I am just one person, not Riot.
Of course,
but
yeah.
yeah. I think the climate has changed a bit for like how we approach games and game modes. Right, we saw Arena happen last year, and we're doing a PVE where people thought would never happen this year. I think we're more open to exploring these kinds of things. It does take a lot to get something just standalone off the ground. So I don't know, but I think Riot has been overall open-minded about approaches.
That's cool. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on and talking Swarm with us. I'm actually really excited to go and play it. It's coming out when?
Wednesday, July 17th.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, technically, I think that's Tuesday, but for NA players, you only play it on the 18th, which when the patch goes out on 3 a.m. Unless, you can stay up for it if you really want to.
I'll be there.
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to playing more. I'm debating if I want to
My
go
wife's in
download
Spain.
the PvE
I can
and
do
play.
whatever I want.
Yeah, I would encourage not burning out on PvE because we do offer more persistent rewards
Yeah,
for
that's what I was thinking, the progression.
live. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not just the progression inside the game, but we're rewarding you with a challenge title, with an emote. If you progress far enough, we're going to give you Aurora for free, right?
Okay.
In the game progression. So.
Cool.
Nice. Well, thanks so much. I'm looking forward to it. That's going to do it for this episode of The Dive, driven by Kia. And thanks so much, Sope, for joining us. And remember, if you're watching this episode on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode of The Dive. You can also check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast platform. And make sure you continue to send in the questions using the hashtag TheDiveLOL. We're going to be doing an episode next week, so we'll use some of those questions for that. And the LCS is going to be back July 20th for Week 4 at 1 p.m. Pacific on Saturday, where Dignitas is going to take on TL. See you next time. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.